The diplomatic reception at the Ethran embassy was Daniel Park's first formal event since arriving as Earth's new cultural liaison. He was trying to navigate the complex social protocols while not embarrassing himself or his planet. The Ethran were an elegant species, tall, with long pointed ears and striking features that Daniel's briefing materials had described as aesthetically distinct but following recognizable humanoid patterns. What the briefing hadn't captured was how genuinely beautiful they were, in ways that transcended species differences. Daniel was standing near the refreshment area, trying to look like he belonged at a formal diplomatic function when she approached. An Ethran woman, perhaps in her late 20s by human standards, wearing formal attire that marked her as part of the diplomatic corps. She had the characteristic long pointed ears swept back in the formal position, elegant features, and the most remarkable eyes Daniel had ever seen, deep violet with flecks of silver that seemed to catch light in ways that suggested depth and intelligence. She was heading toward the refreshment table, and Daniel stepped aside to let her pass. As she reached for a drink, their eyes met briefly, and Daniel found himself speaking before his brain fully engaged. "You have great eyes." The words came out casually, the kind of offhand compliment Daniel might give to anyone back on Earth without thinking twice about it. Just a genuine observation delivered with the thoughtless honesty of someone who wasn't trying to impress, just stating a fact. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Ethran woman froze completely, her hand still extended toward the drink she'd been reaching for. Her violet eyes widened, fixed on Daniel with an intensity that suggested shock. Around them, conversation stopped. Other Ethran in the immediate vicinity turned to stare, their expressions ranging from surprise to something that looked like concern. Daniel felt his stomach drop, suddenly certain he just committed some massive cultural error. "I'm sorry, was that inappropriate? I didn't mean to." The woman continued staring at him, her expression cycling through emotions Daniel couldn't fully read. Then she spoke in a voice that trembled slightly. You see my eyes. You acknowledge them." "I mean, yes," Daniel said, completely confused and increasingly anxious. "They're very striking. I thought it was a compliment, but if I violated some protocol." Before Daniel could finish his apology, an older Ethran male, wearing the insignia of a senior diplomat, approached quickly, his expression carrying barely controlled alarm. "Human, I must ask, do you understand what you just said?" "I complimented her eyes," Daniel said, his confusion deepening. Is that offensive somehow?" The diplomat exchanged a glance with the woman, who was still staring at Daniel with that same intense focus. Among the Ethran, the eyes are considered windows to the soul, quite literally in our cultural and philosophical traditions. To acknowledge someone's eyes directly, to say you see them and find them worthy of notice, this is not casual compliment. He paused, choosing words carefully. It is declaration of recognition, statement that you have looked past surface appearance and status to see the essential nature of the person. And by acknowledging what you see, you accept responsibility for that recognition. Daniel felt his anxiety spiking. "I didn't know that. I was just being honest. Her eyes are genuinely striking, and I spoke without thinking about cultural implications." "That honesty is precisely the problem," the diplomat said. "Or rather, it creates a situation that requires careful handling. When an Ethran acknowledges another's eyes, it is done with full understanding of the weight such recognition carries. But you are human, unfamiliar with our customs. Your words were sincere but unintentional in their cultural meaning." The woman finally found her voice, though it still carried that trembling quality. "Your words, they were genuine. You truly see my eyes as worthy of acknowledgement." "Yes," Daniel said honestly, because lying seemed worse than whatever cultural error he'd made. "They're remarkable. I've never seen eyes quite like that. The color, the way the silver catches the light. I spoke without thinking about protocol, but what I said was true." The woman looked at the senior diplomat, then back at Daniel. He does not understand Cathara Valzev. But his words were spoken with sincerity, without calculation or awareness of their weight. This is unprecedented. The senior diplomat gestured to a more private alcove away from the main reception area. Perhaps we should discuss this away from the general gathering. This situation requires explanation. Daniel followed, the woman walking beside him with an expression suggesting she was processing something profound. Other Ethrin watched them go with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Once they were in the private alcove, the diplomat began explaining. Among the Ethrin, our eyes change subtly based on emotional and spiritual state. The exact patterns and colors reflect our inner nature in ways that are difficult to articulate, but which our people can perceive instinctively. We do not discuss or acknowledge each other's eyes casually, because to do so is to claim you can see and understand someone's essential self. He paused. When you told Lady Saris that she has great eyes, you were, by our cultural understanding, declaring that you see her soul and find it worthy. This creates what we call Cathara Valzev, a bond of recognition that carries significant social and personal implications. Daniel looked at Saris, who was watching him with that same intense focus. I really didn't mean to create a bond or make any kind of declaration. I just thought she had beautiful eyes and said so. But you did mean it, Saris said quietly. Your words were honest. You saw my eyes, truly saw them, and found them worthy of acknowledgement. The lack of cultural understanding does not negate the sincerity of the recognition. The diplomat continued. Among our people, Cathara Valzev typically occurs only between those who know each other deeply, family, close friends, romantic partners. To receive such recognition from a stranger, and a human stranger at that, is highly unusual. What does this bond require? Daniel asked, trying to understand what he'd accidentally committed himself to. It requires that you honor the recognition you gave, the diplomat explained. You cannot simply acknowledge someone's soul and then treat them as a stranger or dismiss the connection. The bond demands that you engage with them as someone you have truly seen, with honesty, respect, and acknowledgement of their worth. I can do that, Daniel said, because it seemed both reasonable and less complicated than he'd feared. I genuinely think she has remarkable eyes. If acknowledging that means I need to be respectful and honest with her, that seems manageable. Saris made a sound that might have been surprised laughter. You speak of Cathara Valzev as if it were simple courtesy rather than profound spiritual connection. Because I don't fully understand your spiritual traditions, Daniel admitted, but I understand respect and honesty. If those are what you need from me after I accidentally created this bond, I can provide them. Over the following days, as Daniel navigated the aftermath of his unintentional cultural declaration, he discovered that Saris was a mid-level diplomat working on cultural integration projects between Ethrin and newly contacted species. She sought him out regularly, not aggressively, but with the careful attention of someone trying to understand an unprecedented situation. Their conversations were initially awkward, both trying to figure out how to interact given the bond Daniel had accidentally created. Can I ask you something? Daniel said during one of their meetings. When I said you had great eyes, what exactly did you feel? What made you react so strongly? Saris considered carefully before answering. Among my people, we spend our lives carefully maintaining emotional control. Our eyes reflect our inner state, and we are trained from childhood to manage what we reveal. We acknowledge each other's eyes only when we are prepared for deep connection, when we trust someone enough to let them see our true nature. She paused. When you casually acknowledged my eyes, it was as if you had looked directly into my soul without permission or warning, and then declared what you saw was worthy. No calculation, no request for permission, no careful approach, just direct, honest recognition. And that was shocking. It was terrifying and exhilarating, Saris admitted. Because you looked at me, truly looked and found something worth acknowledging. Not my rank, not my family connections, not my professional accomplishments. Just me, my essential self reflected in my eyes. Daniel thought about this. For what it's worth, I genuinely think your eyes are remarkable. The compliment was spontaneous, but it was honest. I know, Sarah said quietly. That sincerity is what created the bond. If you had been calculating or trying to manipulate, the words would have been empty. But you spoke from genuine observation, which makes the Kethara Valzev valid regardless of your cultural ignorance. Over the following weeks, their relationship evolved in ways neither had anticipated. Daniel learned to read the subtle shifts in Sarah's eye color and patterns, understanding when she was stressed, when she was pleased, when she was uncertain. It wasn't cultural knowledge he could study. It was personal understanding earned through attention and genuine interest. Saris, for her part, discovered that Daniel's casual honesty extended far beyond that initial compliment. He spoke to her with the same direct sincerity that had created the bond. No diplomatic hedging, no careful political calculation, just straightforward honesty about what he thought and felt. You treat the Kethara Valzev so casually, Saris observed during one of their conversations, as if acknowledging someone's soul were simply normal. Where I come from, really seeing someone, paying attention to who they are rather than what they represent, that is normal, Daniel responded. Or at least it should be. Maybe I don't understand all the spiritual significance you place on it, but the core idea of genuinely seeing people and acknowledging their worth, that just seems like basic human decency. That basic human decency is revolutionary to someone from a culture where such recognition is rare and carefully guarded, Sarah said. When word spread through the Ethran diplomatic community that Lady Saris had entered Kethara Valzev with a human who'd given the recognition accidentally, reactions were mixed. Some viewed it as scandalous, the sacred bond reduced to a casual compliment from someone who didn't understand its significance. Others saw it as fascinating, proof that genuine recognition could occur across species barriers when sincerity was present. The senior diplomat who'd first intervened approached Daniel privately weeks after the initial incident. You have handled the Kethara Valzev with surprising grace, he said. Most humans in your position would have either dismissed it as alien superstition or been paralyzed by the weight of cultural significance. You have simply engaged with Lady Saris with honest respect. Because that's what the situation seemed to require, Daniel said. I accidentally told her I see her soul as worthy. Whether or not I understand all the spiritual implications, that seems like it deserves following through with genuine respect and attention. The diplomat studied him carefully. You understand that this bond, once created, cannot be simply dismissed, that you have created a connection that will endure as long as you both live. I understand that I told someone they have great eyes, and that somehow committed me to treating them with ongoing respect and honesty, Daniel responded. That seems reasonable. I don't go around complimenting people. I'm not prepared to be decent too. When Daniel's cultural liaison assignment concluded, and he prepared to leave the Ethran embassy, Saris met with him privately. You created Kethara Valzev through accident and ignorance, she said. But you honored it through character and genuine engagement. You saw my eyes, truly saw them, and treated that recognition with respect even when you didn't fully understand its significance. She paused, her violet eyes showing patterns Daniel had learned meant vulnerability. Thank you for that. For seeing me, for acknowledging what you saw, and for treating the bond as something worthy of your attention even when you could have dismissed it as alien custom. Daniel took her hand gently. Saris, your eyes really are great. I meant it when I said it, and I mean it now. I'm glad that accidentally creating this bond meant I got to know you, not just as a diplomat, but as a person whose soul apparently shows in ways I can see if I pay attention. Some connections are carefully planned and deliberately cultivated. Some are built through shared experiences and mutual understanding. and some are created through honest compliments given without awareness of their cultural weight, proving that sincerity can carry profound meaning, even when the speaker doesn't understand the full implications.